Good afternoon guys and welcome back to another video with me, Connor. So today we're going to be going through another one of my weekly watch lists. This week's going to be a little bit different. We obviously have had NFP the week before last, which always causes a stir in the markets. Then we had obviously this Easter weekend, so I hope everyone's having a really nice Easter as much as they can and enjoying it inside and staying safe. But also obviously with the sort of lack of liquidity that's in the market, of course Friday was Good Friday, therefore we see a lack of liquidity there, and obviously as a normal Friday, most money's been taken out, and then of course Easter Monday, so therefore we see a lack of liquidity, and then being a national bank holiday, and obviously a bank holiday in many of the countries we can see on Forex Factory here, and then of course sort of the markets will sort of come back into play Tuesday, which means they won't really get going until Wednesday, so it'll be quite a quiet week this week potentially, but there are some really high probability setups that we can go through. So we're just going to sort of start off looking at the news. So as we know, obviously bank holiday throughout most places or most countries, and therefore we can see that there's not really much going on until sort of Wednesday. We've got some retail sales for the US dollar, which of course will probably be quite negative with the lack of sort of consumption at the moment. Then we've got CAD, we've got monetary policies to see if there's anything mentioned in there about the changes in their monetary policy. So of course this is sort of quantitative easing and the interest rate. Then we've got the obviously rate statement, so once again see if they've got any sort of hints of what they might be doing. Then we've got the overnight rate to see how that's affected. Of course if they increase that, then we'll see an increase in the exchange rate, and if we see a decrease, we'll see a decrease in the exchange rate. And of course the press conference, there could be a stir up there, so sort of Wednesday around 3 to 4:15 PM, also even after that because it's a speech. Just be wary and be careful of any CAD pairs. We saw some negative news for the CAD on Thursday, I believe it was, and to be honest, we didn't really go the way that it normally would. It went the other way, so just interesting to see that. Just be wary in these markets. And then Thursday we have the employment change for Australia, so obviously that's going to cause a big stir because naturally that's going to be a massive effect. The unemployment rates of course are higher, and expected unemployment rates negative for the currency, and then of course unemployment claims. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our watch list. So firstly we're going to start off with the DXY as always. Start off on the monthly. So last week I didn't really take too many trades. I was looking at a few of the Australian dollar pairs, but they didn't really play out. I got stopped out of one or two Australian New Zealand dollar and then Australian dollar CAD for sort of 1%, so nothing to worry about there. But wasn't really much going on last week. There was sort of some high volatility, but I think some of the news had an impact, and of course the lack of liquidity, as we said. But okay, so starting off on the monthly, we can just see here that we've obviously got this uptrend. And then obviously we've got this sort of double top that formed up on this liquidity area between the major high and the current major high, so between the 103 to 103.85 level. Then we've got this trend line where we can see prices sort of within this uptrend. If I just adjust that slightly, we can just see the prices within this uptrend, of course making higher highs and higher lows. However, we failed to make a new high here, so therefore are we going to see a pullback like we're seeing, or is this simply a retracement before we make a new higher high? So obviously the last monthly candlestick for March was a spinning top, which signals indecision, and of course we was in a bullish trend, so that means we're going to see a reversal to the downside. And we have seen sort of last month, or sorry, this month so far, we've seen that sort of retracement of that wick, or filling of that wick, and then we're sort of coming down, and we've ended up with an inverted hammer sort of after last week. But obviously it's only the start of the month, so therefore we can't take too much away from that. So of course we're probably expecting price to fall, looking straight at the monthly. So let's go on the weekly. On the weekly we can see this trend line here. We can see that we've now broken the trend line, and then we've sort of faked out or faked back into it in a sense, and then we're still below. We are above the weekly 50 EMA as well. So as we can see here, price could not maintain the momentum, tweezer top formation. So therefore obviously with the tweezer top formation it's a rejection to the upside as we saw, creating that new current high. So then we had sort of a big bearish engulfing candle, then we had the retracement, and now we're sort of seeing that extension carrying on below the 99.92 level, which is the last major high or previous major high. So could this just be a retracement after the break of the 50 EMA, or could we be seeing the bearish engulfing continue to further downside potential? Let's go on to the daily. So on the daily we can just see, we'll see that sort of impulse to the downside, then we've got this huge impulse to the upside, then this sort of correction, and now we're sort of forming, well, obviously if we didn't have this part we'd look more like a head and shoulders, but it's a bit strange at the moment. But overall we are making a lower high here, right? So that would suggest a downtrend, even though we've had this big impulse to the upside. So obviously price breaks out the daily 50 MA. Price has formed a lower high, so sort of opposite biases there. So are we seeing price sort of squeeze within these levels? Is there downside potential to come? We are obviously below that 99.92 level. So let's go on to the 4 hour. So on the 4 hour, it does get a little bit messy. Obviously, following on from last week, we can see that obviously price had that 4 hour consolidation that we spoke about up here, and then we saw the price will come down, broke through that trend line, formed that inverted head and shoulders, which we haven't really seen nothing happen from, and then sort of stalled around that previous high low 100.75. So obviously, then stalled and made sort of a lower high, broke back through the 4 hour 50 MA. Then we sort of hovered on it, and then then had another impulsive move to the downside, and now we're sort of slowly seeing some consolidation. So be interested to see if we can break through the next higher low, because we're currently just ranging in between the two at the moment. Or we could obviously break back above and move to the upside. And some of the pairs we're going to be looking at, we're looking for US dollar strength, so we prefer this to go higher. So the next one, of course, we've got is our gold. So if we go XAU USD, okay, so go on to the monthly. Okay, so here we are, XAU USD or gold. So we can see on the monthly we had that double spinning top pattern, right? And obviously price is now sort of pushing up and testing them highs of that wick. Of course, we haven't closed above it, and therefore we haven't made any new major highs. But obviously we are sort of retracing it. So it'll be interesting to see if this sort of comes down after this week. Of course, this is on the monthly, so let's go down to the weekly. Of course, on the monthly, you can see we have got that all-time high here, so be interested to see if price does push any higher and go anywhere near them levels. On the weekly, we can just see we are making higher highs and higher lows. Obviously, the recent higher low is the one we looked at the other week, which was the 50%, and the weekly 50 EMA. So we pushed up, now equal to previous highs, but we're not really seeing any sort of major push higher. So we sort of not pushed any higher, not closed any higher, so we haven't made a new major high. So following on from that, is price obviously, is it going to reverse from here? We obviously saw this sort of hanging man candle or hammer candle, but of course if it's a hanging man, then what we're saying here is that price was going to push downside. If it was a hammer, then we're saying that price is going to push higher. So obviously what we're asking here is price going to push up and make a new higher and then retest this last major high and go higher, or is price going to push down and then come much lower? So go on to the daily. So on the daily, we can just see that impulsive downside and then sort of that impulse straight back up. And obviously, we had sort of higher lows made. We can see the price is nearly at that minus 27%, which I think when we go on the lower time frames, we have actually achieved that. So obviously, having this in obviously small correction, then a big impulse, price looks like it's running out of steam, and maybe it's just getting that last sort of exhaustion out. And then obviously, with this tweezer bottom formation that we had, down here we saw that massive impulse to the upside, then we had that correction and an impulse. So obviously now equaling the previous highs, like we said, are we going to go any higher, or is that it? Are we going to get correction before we make a new extension, or are we just going to fall to the downside? So let's now go on to the 4 hour. So on the 4 hour, we can just see that obviously we had that trend line we was looking at last week, it's sort of been faked out and then come back in, so we're just going to get rid of that. And then obviously price has reached that minus 27%, as we can see. So obviously following on from that analysis we had last week with the breakout, then the retracement to the 38.2 and then pushing higher. So of course we are a bit overextended right at the moment, obviously equaling that last major high. But obviously we did get this 4 hour doji, which is interesting because the doji indicates indecision. So are we going to see a reversal? Are we going to see a new lower high formed? A new higher low formed, continuing this sort of uptrend, or are we going to break below and then make a new lower high or a new lower low, and then move down to the downside? So of course now we're looking for seeing if we can get a reversal from this area, because it makes sense. We've got liquidity, we know we've now fulfilled that extension, and of course we are sort of at higher levels. So now sort of that's gold done. So for me, I think gold's going to now sound bearish, unless obviously we do continue the structure, but I'm preferring the bearish momentum at the moment, and I'd rather look at that because I think there's more potential in it. So then let's go to oil. So US oil, of course, Trump loves a tweet, we know that, and he did have a little bit of a stir in the markets last week. So we can just see we've got this sort of downtrend making lower highs, and then obviously lower lows. So as we spoke about last week, price has gone down from $49 a barrel to $20, and obviously price is below that monthly 50 MA massively. Price obviously has now pushed really low towards sort of breaking this channel. However, we did get a close above, and back into the channel, but you can see the huge wick form, the wick being bigger than the body. So sort of creating an inverted hammer, but it's not very sort of textbook. But you can see we're sort of just slightly above that, but I think we're now going to break below, and then maybe continue. If we go below that 19.99, I think definitely for that $16 could be the next sort of zone. But obviously, however, if oil supply decreases, which I know Trump and Saudi Arabia are in discussions about, because naturally, if they decrease the supply of oil, it becomes rarer and then price goes back up. And of course, for say US or Canada, or them other countries that aren't sort of Saudi Arabia, or included in OPEC, then naturally they're going to want the price to increase, and then they can make more money on their exports. So now let's go on to the weekly. On the weekly, we can just see that on the weekly, we can just see that obviously price has made this massive impulse down. Then we got that sort of big bullish engulfing following the news, but you can see we never really broke out that liquidity zone from here. So if we can just look at these wicks here, you can see the price sort of tapped it. We never broke above, and then we've seen price push straight back down, back through the last major low. So now are we going to see, is this just a retracement, or is this going to go higher? So of course reversing that liquidity area, and then we do have this liquidity down here, so kind of in between them two zones still. Go on to the daily. On the daily, you can just see them two zones a little bit more clearly. You can see obviously these wicks created here that we did have some sort of liquidity in, and then of course we've got this liquidity zone here which we didn't break, faked out of the last major low, and then obviously a massive sort of nearly a shooting star off of it, and a sort of bearish engulfing. So obviously that's suggesting more downside potential. So are we going to see that? So let's go on to the 4 hour. So on the 4 hour, we can just see sort of looking at another picture, so another possible situation here. So obviously for a trend, we're looking at 2 touches for an idea, 3 touches for confirmation. So therefore, with this one, we can see a 71% fib retracement, and obviously breaking below that 4 hour 50 MA. So potentially, could we see a reversal from here back through 4 hour 50 MA, back above that last major low and go higher, because we are making a series of higher lows and higher highs. However, we did make this lower high here, so something to be aware of. But of course, we could see that potential to the upside. However, if we do break below and then retest, then of course it's likely we're going to see more downside potential, which is probably the more likely. So now what we do is we're just going to go on to our watch list for this week. You can just go. So now we're looking at the monthly on CAD Swiss. So our first pair we're going to look at, of course, is a pair that's been taking my interest for a couple of weeks now. We can just see sort of how price has broken out clearly. Very big impulsive moves to the downside last month, and then of course we did close above that all-time low, which is shown here. It's very interesting to see. Obviously, we have got to see the price has sort of broken back above slightly, but it's not very convincing for me. So I don't really think we have broken back above it. We can then go into the weekly and just see that price has actually filled the gap that was caused a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, with probably oil, and obviously that change in oil. So when oil gaps to the downside, then CAD naturally gaps as well. So now we filled that wick. It's quite interesting to see. And potentially we could be seeing a move back to the downside now. See that folding that we've looked at for weeks, and I know I've looked at many weeks now, and I did try and get a position on the week on last week, but I ended up closing for about 10 pips, so not really much. Still some profit at least, but not really much, and not really what I'd want. So of course, looking at this, we can just see that sort of that gap's been filled here, which naturally once the gap's been filled, we can see that roll over to the downside, and we can see on the weekly we did then get sort of that bearish, or bears come back into play. Then go on to the daily, we can just see that sort of wedge pattern that we was looking at last week. So obviously what we're looking at is for price to sort of break out of that and then come to the downside. So obviously impulse, then this correction, 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, spinning top off of it, and then sort of the end of this sort of evening star in a sense. And then of course we've had a spinning top on the daily, showing that sort of indecision, but retesting that 38.2. And of course this is sort of the trade that I'd be looking at roughly. So a 5.25 risk to reward, and then potentially if we was to go to the all-time low, which now we feel the gap potentially would be more 8.87. But of course, depending on your entry, will be a better stop loss. So it just depends on what we can see. So go on to the 4 hour. And on the 4 hour, we can just see, as my nice drawing showed here, what I'm looking for, something like that. And we can just see here that if I zoom out slightly, we obviously broke that trend line, retested it quite nicely. We thought we were going to move down there, we didn't, broke back above the 4 hour 50 MA, and now we are sitting above price. However, when we zoom in, we can just see obviously rejecting that top of the channel, we've got that sort of evening star formation, that liquidity formed by the spinning top, and the price didn't sort of come into play again, so potentially because it's roll over now back to the downside. and of course going with my short idea. So that's one of the main ones for the watch list. Then we've got Euro Yen. So if we go into the monthly, you can see simple downtrend. Trend line slightly off there. So we've got the simple downtrend, and we've made this impulse downside, made this new lower high, and then rolled back over. But we've equaled previous lows and then come back up. But of course, you can see that we did sort of reverse around that 38.2%, which the monthly is sort of sitting about 200, 300 pips above. So going to the weekly. On the weekly, we can see that the price obviously broke out of this sort of wedge that it was in, and then come up, tested this sort of weekly 50 MA, come back down, and it's retraced to 71% and the weekly 50 MA. Then we saw this big impulse, big bearish engulfing that we've now retraced and now look to be pushing back down. So obviously, when we go on to the daily, we can just see whether we're going to look for that new extension form. So on the daily, price action is a bit messy. Of course, this was the trade that I caught back in sort of November, I think it was, and then obviously in January we caught this sort of the first initial downside move for about 300 pips, which potentially been a lot more. But then obviously we've got this sort of correction, and so it's been quite messy since then. But I do quite like where price is currently. So you can see that we come back up, reverse around the 88% fib, which I don't really like using, but we have got confidence here because we've got this liquidity here. This evening star sort of formation, broke back through the daily 50 MA, made this new low. Of course, it's not quite the same as the previous lows, but correction. You see that slowdown in price, that liquidity spikes forming, and then of course now we're looking for that deceleration to confirm that lower high, and then of course reverse from the 50%, and the daily 50 MA is above it. So potentially we could just sort of see this stay down to the 50 MA starts to smoothen out. But I do quite like this looking short. And on the 4 hour, you can just see that although the price action is quite messy, we've got sort of this nearly head and shoulders formation in the sense. Maybe this is the right shoulder coming in. And what I'm looking for basically is this trend line to break. So if I just adjust that slightly, we can just see obviously price to do something like this. If I redraw that, then potentially for price to do something like this, come back down, retest it, and then move to the downside, which I think could be quite a nice move. And I've been looking at this one a couple of weeks, and I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago because we had potential for the upside and potential for the downside. But now I think the downside picture is confirmed, and I do like the look of this. So obviously 4 hour 50 MA, and then potential to go lower. So then obviously we're looking at sort of this break of this trend line here, which has only got 2 touches, so not definitely a trend yet. But potential reverse from this 50%, break below that 4 hour 50 MA, and then break below the trend line, and then potentially move to the downside. And then next on our watch list, we've got Euro USD, of course, our highest volume traded pair. And of course, it's always an important pair because it guides a lot of the major pairs and a lot of the US dollar base pairs. Okay, so we have got this wedge that's been formed, and you can just see that price has formed this sort of doji candlestick, tested that monthly 50 MA, and then come back down, and now sort of sitting within that wedge again after that sort of hammer candle we had a couple of weeks ago. And on the weekly, you can see that we had that downside channel that sort of got quite messy. We broke above it, broke below it. No surprise to see that spinning top, and then we broke below that weekly support of 1.1, sort of retracing that bearish candlestick. And then of course we could potentially be seeing this move forward to the downside. Go to the daily, and of course on DXY we're saying that we're looking sort of, it's quite messy, potentially going to go higher, it looks more poised for the short. But on most of the dollar pairs, I'm looking for shorts, Australian dollar, US dollar. I know I was looking at short last week, but then that went out of my sort of confidence zone, so I'm not looking at that anymore. Then we had pound USD, which of course I will be looking at shorts. New Zealand USD, looking at shorts as well. And obviously like USD JPY, USD Swiss we'll look at as well. But it's quite interesting like where sort of the DXY is and sort of this price action we see on Euro USD. And of course Euro USD guides a lot of the other USD pairs because it's the most heavily traded pair. And of course when we're looking at things like Euro USD, looking at things like Euro JPY, then we're looking at the combination of Euro USD and USD JPY for things like Euro JPY, because of course you put them together and that's what we get. Same for example, if we're looking at Pound Aussie, it's Pound USD versus Aussie USD. And then we can put them together to make these sort of ideas. So that's why it's always important if you're looking at one of the minor pairs or the exotic pairs, look at the major pair. And then obviously compare which the major pairs are all the US dollar pairs. So obviously looking back at this daily picture on Euro USD, you can see that impulse to the downside, then that correction, and then we moved back below, and now we look to be sitting at 38.2, so below the daily 50 as well. So looking for that sort of rollover to the downside again. We did get that sort of impulse, could be using that exhaustion, then that spinning top, and now potentially that rollover to the downside again. And on the 4 hour, you can just see we do have sort of this wedge that's formed, this triangle, and then we sort of broke above it, but not convincingly. 50%, 38.2% sitting in between them ranges, and then potentially going to move back below. We're not really seeing price push any higher, and potentially could come back into the 450 MA and then move back to the downside. And not really convincingly broke this trend line for me, but price has been quite slow, and obviously the lack of liquidity in the markets right now wouldn't help. If the major pair hasn't got it, then a lot of the other pairs won't have it as well. Next on our list is Pound Aussie, something that I love to trade because it does have massive potential, because it's always moving massively. The pips that you can catch on it is great, but if it goes against you, then of course it's not good. Okay, so you can see here that we've got this wedge, obviously lower highs and lower lows being made. Lower highs being made, but higher lows. So we do have this uptrend that's formed. Price now failing to break above that last major high, and obviously break above here. But we do have this last major low here. So we're obviously looking for price to push down below that. The monthly is forming a shooting star at the moment, but of course we've still got another sort of 2 weeks in of the month, and a lot can change within that time, especially with the news that's going on. But we can see sort of that rejection of that sort of downward trend line and potentially move lower. Go on to the weekly. On the weekly, we can just see that we do have obviously this uptrend here, and of course we do have this really strange uptrend that was formed. So when I was looking at this during my weekend analysis, you can see here that what we've had is, if I zoom in, you can see we had this uptrend, but price was making these really weird candlesticks. So it's like a series of dojis, but the bodies kept getting bigger or sort of higher and higher. Then we sort of had this normal sort of looking candlestick, retested that last major high very nicely, and then moved down with this massive bearish engulfing that's taken out pretty much weeks or months worth of candlesticks. So obviously, although we've got that, we've now sort of broke below that, so potentially a big move to the downside. We're probably going to see a retracement after such an impulsive move, but I expect obviously overall to see a more downside potential. So then going to the daily. On the daily, you can see we've got these two trend lines. We've got this one at the bottom here. If I adjust that, you can just see sort of 1-2 touch. So potentially something there. But then we've got this sort of smaller structure which we have broken below, broken through the daily 50 MA and the trend line quite well. So a nice sort of confirmation there. And then we've seen that price has come below, retested really nicely with the spinning top doji, below that daily 50 MA as well, and then potentially could roll over to the downside from here. And then of course we want to break that last major low and this sort of other outer structure, because this one's got 3 touches, so it's a confirmation, whereas this one's only 2 touches. Going to the 4 hour. On the 4 hour we can just see, if I get rid of this liquidity, you can just see of course that we've got this level here where we just sort of trend that we've broken now, made this new low, then we had a new lower high, 38.2 and the 4-hour 50 MA. Then we've now met the extension, which we don't look to be stopping here. So what I'd say is once we've got this sort of extension or sort of this new low made, then of course we can move our fib from sort of the lower low to the next lower low and the next lower high to the next lower high, and then be looking for something like this. So potentially you could have had maybe even something like that, and then 38.2. Now we're looking for that new low to be made from that new high, and then seeing where we could obviously potentially retrace to. So something like that. So then when we go on to the next pair, which is I believe GBP USD. So on the monthly you can see that downtrend we've been speaking about for weeks now, and obviously I've discussed sort of the economics behind it and the recessions and why it doesn't look great for us. And of course it's the lower interest rate and the lack of consumption at the moment. It's not really working out well, so that monetary policy is not really being effective at the moment, because naturally there's not a lot that we can do or the government can really do in this time, apart from all that they are trying to do, because the economy isn't in the best position as it is, and with everything that's going on, it hasn't really benefited either. So we can just see obviously that downtrend that we've been speaking about for weeks now, 61.8, and the monthly 50 MA reversal. Going to the weekly. So on the weekly, if I get rid of this daily and move that, trading has been a bit strange the last few days, guys. So there has been a few things I've had noticed. For example, trend lines slightly moved, or the save hasn't actually saved. Parts of it saved, parts it hasn't. Visibility has been a bit weird as well. So just warnings for anyone who's using TradingView. Of course, it's still the best software, but I just be careful. So price impulsively broke to the downside, breaking through the weekly 50 MA as we saw. After forming that all-time low, obviously the new low, which is worrying for us. We did see that retracement to the 61.8 fib, which we are still sitting at. And of course, I thought this was going to move last week, or even maybe the week before, but we did see a very impulsive week this week. So if I zoom in, you'll see this big impulse that we've had, and around the 61.8% and the liquidity that formed from the spinning top. We can see we are sort of sitting on this level. So going to the daily. On the daily, you can see we've got that sort of lower or smaller time frame trend line with one touch, two touch fake up. And then what we've got here is potentially that 61.8, that daily 50 MA. Then we've got sort of this slow momentum. We looked like it was going to make that new, or start a new phase here, that new wave, but we didn't. Now we're sort of looking to maybe potentially do a double top. So potentially you could be doing something like this. Ooh. And then move down. Or there's another scenario that we're going to look at. But you can obviously see here, so dailies, obviously price has formed that new lower low here. Then we're looking at the lower high here. Then obviously with the daily 50 MA, 61.8% fib liquidity. The Friday closes spinning top, which signals indecision, so maybe roll over from here. And obviously on the 4 hour, we do have this sort of trend line that we've got. You can see here we've sort of had this triple top, then nearly a quadruple top, maybe even a quintuple top to come. But what I'm looking at roughly is sort of this to break back through, retest or retrace to one of our fibs, and then obviously maybe what we could see is maybe something like this where we see a break on to the 4 hour, retrace from here and then down. But of course this is something, so we've got obviously these lower, also these high lows which will obviously supply some support. And obviously looks to maybe come to your time low and potentially even lower, which with the trade that I'm looking at, it is around, I think it was around, 26.82% risk reward, which obviously you want that high risk reward. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram and stuff having risk rewards of like -1 to 2, so, or for example, just higher risk than what their reward is, which makes no sense in trading. Don't know why you do that. The whole idea is to make your life easier, make your trading easier, and give yourself the opportunity that if you've got a low percentage win, a low win rate, then obviously have a higher risk reward, and in that way you're going to still make lots more tips. So yeah, GBP USD, still looking at them shorts. We just need to wait for the right entry. Next one we've got on our watch list is New Zealand dollar, US dollar. So you can see obviously on that monthly we've got that trend line which we broke really nicely, faked back out into it, and then come back down and made this massive wick that does need to be filled ideally. Weekly, you can just see sort of that wedge or triangle that's starting to form. So from that trend line we spoke about before, then we've got this downside trend line which we obviously is now tested and come back below. If I zoom in, we can just see that price has obviously broke below the ascending trend line, broke above the week 59 and broke back below it, coming down really nicely. So now we're just looking for that retracement, which when we go into the daily, very similar to GU, right? So we've got that 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, fake out, and now looking for this sort of 4th touch. And this one's sort of slightly closer to the trend line than maybe GBP USD is, but we've got that daily 50 MA, we've got 61.8%, we've got daily spinning top as well, signaling that indecision, potentially roll over from here, and then on the 4 hour you can just see, looking for something like, ignore my dodgy drawings, but you can see sitting in that zone again, just like GU, got that spinning top or sort of greystone doji that is providing some obviously resistance in that sense, or that liquidity. So what we're looking at is sort of price come down, make maybe a flag to correct and sort of breaking below this support, which will potentially turn resistance. Then we come down again, then get some correction, testing obviously this high low, then come down again, and then maybe a small correction before we reach the bottom. So potentially really nice trades there. Of course, with your stop loss, you want to be placing it sort of just above sort of these highs, maybe even 50 pip stop loss, and also take profit down here. Be a nice 12.5 risk to reward. And yeah, you can say they're a bit ambitious, but that's what we want to do, right? It's the whole idea of trading maximum potential out of it. Next one we're going to look at is USD CAD, which obviously we're looking at for weeks again. Some of these setups just sort of come into play, and obviously looking at these higher time frames, you do sort of see these moves come into play, but you don't get the entry. So on the monthly, you can just see that double top forming within that supply zone. Supply zone is because supply is obviously, we're now seeing an influx of supply come into the market, and obviously that pushes price down because of higher supply means less demand in a sense, because of less people demanding that currency, and the supply is increasing, which means that people don't want to buy that anymore. They're now looking to sell it and get rid of and increase the supply, which pushes price down, which is not as rare. If you're not really too sure on liquidity and stuff like that, by all means send me a message. Within sort of the RWave community, if you do sign up to any of our packages, I'm more than happy to do some one-to-one stuff, including in that package. And it's something that we'll be introducing into the future as well. And of course, if you want to join into the Monday calls or even the Thursday calls, just drop me a message and I'm more than happy to help you join them. They're absolutely free to join, they're open to anyone, and they just sort of give you an insight to what we do and also hopefully educate you. So then going on to the weekly. On the weekly, what we can see, so we had this wedge that we broke out of, made these new highs, which we have not maintained at all, come straight back down with a bearish engulfing last week. So can we break below this sort of weekly support we've got here? Then the daily, you can just see, obviously after breaking that, we've got this sort of break really nicely, the trend line. Then we've retested, retraced to 38.2 and then pushed down. So maybe you see that minus 27% or a little bit further, close to that minus 61.8 and test that daily 50 MA. So on the 4 hour, you can just see price obviously breaking out of that wedge, that downtrend broke out, then we had that wedge pushed down, double top around that 38.2 and the 4 hour 50 MA, and then now sort of forming that evening star, and hopefully we'll push lower. So I quite like this. Then go on to USD Swiss franc. On the monthly, we can see that we are sort of below that daily, below that monthly 50 MA. We're below that trend line that was formed. So if I adjust that, you just see broke that, retested quite nicely, and obviously prices making sort of a pitchfork in a sense. And then of course we're obviously struggling to get anywhere back above that. We're struggling to sort of break this sort of small trend line here. So we go on the weekly, we can just see we are below that 50 MA still, and of course we are sort of looking to break this area, sort of corrected, obviously nearly sort of a double top in a sense, but pushing down, and then we're looking for price to sort of push down from here. So obviously we did get this bearish engulfing, retraced that, and now we're sort of seeing that push back down, not making any sort of moves above that weekly 50 MA. We do have the 78.6 fib as well, and also we saw that reverse from there. On the daily, we are also below the 50 MA. To see how on all these time frames we're below the 50 MA, giving us really a good idea of trend. So we've got this sort of triangle that formed, or wedge, rising wedge, and then we sort of broke below the daily 50 MA, retested it with a spinning top, and then potentially could come lower from here. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on from the rest of the week. But I do really like the ideas of the shorts, which naturally, if you're looking at it, if you're looking to short GBP USD, that means you're looking for USD strength. But if you're looking at short in USD Swiss franc, you're looking at USD weakness. This is where we've got to just be sensible, look for the entry, and trade what you see. So go on to the 4 hour. And we are also below price, below the 4 hour 50 MA again. It's got that trend. You can see how we broke out and sort of not really made any more attempts to downside. So maybe see some retracement and then look to roll over. But you can see we had that sort of. The reason I've done my fib like this, by the way, is because we made a lower high here. So therefore, I'm focused on the lower low, lower high. I know we was in an uptrend before, so just to answer anyone who's wondering that, because some people would put their fib obviously from here, put this as the 0 and then look for the retracement. But for me, I'm doing it this way because I prefer the downside. So obviously fib there from high to lower high. Then obviously you're looking for that lower low to be formed. Next one as well, which is USD Japanese yen. Obviously on the monthly. So you can see here we've obviously made that weird sort of formation again, but rejecting the day, monthly 50 MA. And on USD yen, we are below all the 50 MAs as well, which is really nice to say. We're going to get some downside potential. So we couldn't maintain level above that, couldn't maintain above the 110 level, and now we can't maintain above the 109 level either. So on the weekly, you can see obviously that impulse come back up, made that sort of double top, and then push back below. Now we've had a greystone doji on the weekly. So for anyone not sure, basically greystone doji, although it looks like sort of an inverted hammer, what we've got here is the price is closed pretty much where it opened, which is very strange in a weekly picture, right? What it tells us is that price couldn't move. So in a sense, it's the whole week done nothing. Which obviously suggests to us that a lot of people say, well, it actually is a very bearish candle. And yes, we are seeing some more bearish pressure, but ultimately we didn't move anywhere, right? But what I like is the fact that we tested that week's 50 MA, couldn't stay above it, obviously come all the way back down. So we have sort of rejected that, which does say maybe the bears are coming back into play. But obviously we are rejecting that weekly 50 MA and below it. On the daily, you can see we've got this sort of outer structure first. So I'll focus on the outer structure first. So if I just get rid of this fib for a second, we was looking at the long, which we got, obviously I got a couple of weeks ago, which we caught, and then we caught this long here, and now you can see 88% E. This stretched evening star, so not textbook, but stretched in the terms of it still explains the same thing. And then we've come down, broke below, now broke back below daily 50 MA, see at the end of last week, and now massive potential. Then obviously what we can do is then if we plot another fib from this high to this low, we can see a 50% retracement, and then you can see reversal. So looking at that as well, and on the 4 hour, a little bit clear, more clear, you can see similar to DXY, naturally you've got high correlation. You've got this sort of high low, high highs being formed. Then we had that slowdown, that new high that failed to be made. Then we pushed below, made that initial low. Then with an inverted hammer, push back up, then come back down for slightly lower low. Now obviously looking for that lower high, which we sort of sat around that 109 level. Now broke below that 4 hour 50 MA with a big bearish impulsive engulfing, and then obviously just sitting along that. So potentially a move to the downside to come. And obviously we've been below all the 50 MAs. It is very interesting to see. But I say, and obviously that is the end of my watch list yet. So obviously any questions, by all means message me. Like I said, if anyone is interested in joining IYF, please let me know. We are really doing well at the moment with the community. We're hosting 2 official sort of mentoring calls a week between myself hosting the Mondays and Ollie, our head trader, hosting the Thursdays. And then we have loads of guys like Josh, Matt, and some of the other community mentors who do help out and also do their own sort of calls as well. And of course, these ones are when they're able to do them. And then of course, we get everyone sort of learning different ways and learning throughout the RF strategy and learning through what we do at RYF. So hopefully we can continue growing the community. We've seen so many good traders come through lately, and some guys who had the potential now starting to see results as well. But I say, obviously this is my weekly watch list. Hope you enjoyed it. Everyone stay safe. Hope you're being active and learning a new skill, whether it's trading or anything else. And I'll see you on the next one. Any questions, drop me a message.